Welcome to Face Reading 101 for online dating men. This will make your life a little bit easier if you're in the dating pool to find the best fish. All right, let's get started. So step one in looking at a photo is, what do you notice first? Now the face is split up into three sections. The upper section, which is the forehead and hairline. Then we have the middle section, which is like the nose and the ears and the eyes. And then down here we have the mouth and jaw. The forehead. So if you notice the forehead first out of everything, like in these pictures, that denotes someone with brains, highly analytical, uses the mind a lot. The forehead in there, the upper stuff is all in the mind. So this person is more analytical, a thinker, a deep thinker, probably is book smart and likes to use his brain in life, the mind. He's more intellectual. Lots of writers and people like that have a higher developed upper forehead. So even look at my baby picture. Like, this is me, my baby picture. And what do you notice first about me? It is that big forehead. And often through life, even right now, I always get told that I'm got a big forehead. But that's because I'm got Aquarius and Gemini in my chart. That's all analytical in the mind, right? Now, when we look at the hairline of someone, for example, straight across means that they work longer hours. And then you might have these foreheads with like a widow's peak, which can mean they're calm and they're pretty laid back. And then in some cases, you can have these kind of a weird hairline that's kind of all wiggly squiggly. And that can mean that they had sort of a chaotic childhood. Those rounded hairlines, like my man, for example, that's very people oriented and friendly, right? There's friendliness to that. Hair color can mean something too, and so can the texture of the hair. You know how when we say blondes have more fun? That has a little bit of truth to it. People with blonde hair usually are more independent, though. They are a little more fun-loving, but they can also be needing quite a bit of independence. Black hair, that can be a little more dominant, a little more intense per se. Okay, and then brown hair is, the most common hair color out there. But brown hair, it's warm, it's friendly, it's more family oriented. Brown can usually be a pretty good color. And then red hair is, like they say, it is a little more fiery. It is a little more dramatic, right? Red hair is a little bit more rebellious too. And it's rare to find a redheaded person usually nowadays, but you might find some. Okay, and then we look at hair texture. If you find a man who has really curly hair, well, he's probably more playful, a little more lively, maybe a little more fun. If the man has really, really straight hair, that could mean that they're a little more serious, a little more straightforward. The eyes. The eyes are the window of the soul. And so when I look at people on pictures and that, the eyes need to match the smile. They need to match what's going on. You can smile, for example, like Robin Williams, he was depressed inside. And his eyes never matched his smile, right? It's just the mouth movements of the smile, but it's not a true smile, not coming out through the eyes. So when you look at these men in their pictures, right, the eyes definitely tell a lot. You're looking for a little bit of sparkle of life. You're looking for gentleness. Um, you know, and you can see, like, in some cases, people can be very intense with their eyes. Like, we call it crazy eyes. Okay. It's like Charles Manson is a very big example of that. But you can see a little bit of crazy eyes. Like, look at Jeff Bezos from Amazon, one of the richest men in the world. Look at his left eye compared to his right eye. It's weird. Like, something's going on weird. I watch for stuff like that. Like, looking at the eyes in that kind of way as a lens into their soul and their true selves. Even the color of eyes, like brown eyes, mean they probably like animals or children, or they're more family oriented, for example. Hazel eyes love variety. Blue eyes love to be analytical. So do gray and gray blue eyes. That all fits into that same analyzing sort of energy, the details. When we look at the eyes too, how far apart are they and how close together are they? The wider apart, the more big picture. The closer together, the more that the details, the precision, that kind of feeling matters. So, for example, when we look at Jack Black's eyes, who's an actor and a musician and more of the arts, okay, his eyes are wider apart. But when we look at other pictures, we can see that their eyes are closer together, they're more detail oriented, and as well as the size of the eyes. If you have bigger eyes, you're more creative per se, or maybe big picture oriented. Maybe you're an artist, something like that. And if you're smaller eyes, you're more of a studier, of looking at the details, analytical, not super artsy fartsy, you know, that kind of feeling as well. So it kind of depends on what kind of man you're looking for. Are you looking for one who is more creative? Or are you looking for someone who's more detail, business-like oriented? So it really depends on you. But yeah, there's the bigger the eyes and the more wider apart, the more creative, the more right-brained, the more artist, the more big picture oriented. And then the closer together, smaller eyes people are more detail oriented, precise, analytical. And many people in business have eyes closer together as well. So if you look at pictures and you notice, what's the first thing you notice? Either the eyes or the ears or the nose first. Well, there's different information that can be gleaned from that. If you notice a person with a very large nose, this means that they're likely wealthy or that they have money. For example, let's look at Bill Gates. Let's look at Will Smith. Right? The big nose can mean wealth. We call it the lion's nose. And that's kind of a wealth generator. The large size nose is actually a good thing. So Michael Jackson, for example, didn't think that he liked his nose. But look at, so when he was young, he had this nice big lion's nose, we call it. It's a wealth generating nose. And then as he got older, he made it smaller and smaller and smaller until finally it was at the verge of collapsing and he lost much of his wealth. He should have probably stopped the operations, the surgical reductions much further back, because he would have been able to keep more of his wealth. So the nose can also show a person who's businesslike and responsible and analytical when it's very in charge in the way of straight and long bridge, and it's sort of developed that way. If that's something that you notice, that can be a good thing. A hawk nose, however, is not so good because that shows nosiness. I think that's where the term nosy came from. Then we look, a very big one for me anyways, is the ears. So let's look at some of these pictures with people with well-developed ears, or something that you notice first is their ears. Large ears denote intelligence. And then if they're going high on the face towards the eyebrows, like they're a little higher on the face, that denotes intelligence as well. Now, another thing too is that if they're sort of coming out like Will Smith does, that's like musically talented, trying to listen. Lots of people with the outer, like they're listening, they're trying to get access to the music, for example, and it can denote someone who's musical. Smaller ears can mean that they're not the best at listening. So, for example, when we see Tony Robbins, we know that the first thing we notice is his mouth, which we're going to get into in the next section of this video. So we know he's a communicator already by the mouth, but is he a good listener? Well, maybe not so good at listening. His ears are flat to the head, they're smaller. I think that as he's getting older, he's learned how to listen much more. So, there's a chance for him to talk when it's time, but there's also a chance to listen. And I think that skill probably came to him later in life. Large ears does definitely mean a better listener. Smaller ears can also mean that it's just more difficult for them to communicate, which isn't like a super bad thing, but I'm just saying that ears does denote intelligence if that's something that you're looking for. If you're looking for an intelligent person besides the forehead thing, you're looking for higher up ears. You're looking for larger ears. The mouth, chin, jaw, if that's more well developed, like we said about Tony Robbins, if that's developed, well, that's very much a sign of a communicator. For example, my man has that big mouth. Jack Black has that bigger mouth. And you're sort of looking for a mouth too that has the upturned, a little bit upturned, not the downward turn, which means, I don't know, more serious or sadness. But when you have the little smile, kind of like Jack Black with I call it the Joker, there can be comedy there, like the Joker, right? But it can also just mean like not taking life super, super seriously, probably funny, likes to tell stories, could be good for telling stories around the campfire kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like there's this nice, if with the upturn, right? And if the mouth is a good communicator and the ears show good listening by being large and maybe sticking out a little bit, that's a good sign. You've got both the best of communication plus listening to you, right? Nice balance. So that's something cool. And then when we look at the face itself, right, that can mean something. Those more rounded, circular faces usually mean like a people person. And when the smile matches the eyes, that's very important to look for in a picture. So like, for example, when we look at some of these guys on The Bachelorette season that were called the villains, okay? I think their names were Luke and Chad. They were the villains in Bachelorette. They were kind of bad. Anyways, like their smile doesn't really match the eyes. Their eyes have something going on, weird. But when we look at other guys like this, their smile is matching the eyes. There's the gentle twinkle of the eyes mixed with the gentle twinkle of the smile. It kind of all matches, you feel trusting. In the chin, if you see a dimple in the chin, which I always love dimples anyways, but when you see it in the chin, that's a person who really kind of just loves life. And it can also denote some kind of creativity, maybe being an artist or an actor or even a musician. Yeah, a cleft chin or a dimple in the chin, that kind of thing can mean something creative as well. When we look at the jaw, you'll see some people with broad jaws, like Tony Robbins, like certain people who like physical activity. And their jaw is a little more broad and angular, we'll say. And this means usually like a strong willpower, not lazy. Mouth. So we talked about communication is the mouth. The bigger the mouth, the more talk. Can be good, can be bad, depending on the other parts of the face, right? But sometimes we really want those large lips to kiss, right? Those large lips. Well, that definitely can mean virility, especially if the lower lip is much thicker than the top lip in a man. It can mean that he's really attached to sex rather than the emotional connection. So you kind of want to find lips that are more balanced. I think that's important. A larger lower lip, though, also can mean that they can keep your secrets a little more. And then when we look at lips that are a little more business-like, that's the thinner lips. They're a little more business-like. They probably succeed well in business, though. And in some cases, they're very rare, but you might find the larger lip much larger than the bottom lip. Those thicker upper lips means that they're so generous. However, in some cases, it can be over generous. So let's talk about eyebrows for a second. In eyebrows, when they're lower to the eye, like the eyeball, when they're lower, it usually means that they're more friendly and approachable. And then the higher the eyebrow, the more higher standards they could have. Usually these guys with a little bit more bushier, not overly bushy though, but, and I'll give you an example. So like my guy, for example, and his brother here, okay, they've got those nice brown, big eyes, caring and friendly. Both of them are friendly men. And their eyebrows are a little closer down to the eyes, right? That's a good thing. But then when you get into these more really bushier brows or really thick ones like this and this, it can mean like trying to be like the boss. Like the person's likely pretty intense. It's a little bit of dominance, let's say, right? When you look at the eyelids as well, can you see visible eyelids or not? If they're visible eyelids, like in these, in these guys, they're visible eyelids, so they're more action oriented, taking action. Whereas when you see these eyes that are non-visible eyelids, that you can't see the eyelids, these are more like planners, list makers. The cheeks. All right, so let's look at the cheeks. I always like a full fleshy cheek that you want to pinch. That always means good. It's fun, it's caring, it's nice. Like people who have fleshy cheeks just care. They care. And they can be more fun loving, not so serious. People with really no cheeks, you can't really pinch them. They're really like angular, maybe the bony faces. That's more like people that are a little too serious. And that could be good if that's the way you are. Maybe that's what you want. But for me personally, I'm putting some of my bias into this video. But I prefer someone myself who's a little more fun-loving, easygoing, not too what we would, angular. There's some flesh there. You want to pinch those cheeks. Now, in some cases, you'll see cheeks that are way up here. High cheeks mean a love of travel. And then when you get those flat cheeks that you can't pinch, they're really flat to the skin or flat to the face, right? Flat cheeks are people who intellectualize their feelings. So if you're looking for a guy who can like share his feelings a little easier than that, don't look for a flat cheek person. Look for one you can pinch their cheeks pretty good, because you're going to get more emotion out of them. You're going to get more feeling out of them, right? All right, there we go. I hope you enjoyed that face reading 101 to help make your dating life a little easier. But this doesn't just work in dating. This can work anywhere, so that how does your boss think? How does your current relationships, what do they need? My name is Trina, your intuitive guide, helping you navigate life's energies. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.